Hey man, there is something many men do not understand when a relationship ends. In the moment of the breakup, it often feels like the woman holds all the power. She walks away confidently, sometimes cold, sometimes indifferent, sometimes even relieved. From the outside, it looks like she has already moved on, while the man is left sitting with the silence that follows. And in that moment, many men convince themselves that she will never look back, that she will never feel anything about what just happened. But what most men fail to realize is that emotional reality does not unfold instantly. Time changes how people feel about everything. When the relationship ends, the first thing that usually happens is emotional momentum. The woman is still moving forward with the energy of the decision she made. Her mind is focused on the reasons the relationship did not work. Her friends reinforce those reasons. Her pride reinforces those reasons. And in that early phase, everything inside her mind is organized around justifying the choice she made. She tells herself that she did the right thing, that she deserves better, that leaving was the correct move. And for a while, that belief feels solid. It feels convincing. Because when people walk away from something, they rarely allow themselves to sit with doubt immediately. Doubt is uncomfortable. Doubt forces reflection. Doubt forces someone to question whether they might have lost something valuable. So instead of doubt, the mind chooses certainty. She tells herself that the relationship had problems, that the man was not what she needed, that there are better options waiting somewhere ahead. But then something interesting begins to happen. Once time starts passing, the emotional momentum begins slowing down. The arguments fade from memory. The frustrations lose their intensity. The reasons she used to justify the breakup slowly stop feeling as convincing as they did in the beginning. What once felt like clarity starts turning into quiet reflection. This is where time begins doing something powerful. Time removes emotional noise. During the relationship and during the breakup, emotions are loud. Anger is loud, pride is loud, ego is loud, but time slowly silences those emotions. And once that silence appears, the mind finally has space to replay the past with more honesty. When that happens, the memories she once ignored start returning. Not the arguments, not the frustrations, but the quiet moments. The moments where the relationship actually felt safe, familiar, and meaningful. The moments where the man showed patience. The moments where he supported her. The moments where he stayed when leaving would have been easier. And the mind begins asking questions it refused to ask before. Was he really as bad as I convinced myself he was? Did I walk away too quickly? Did I take something stable and meaningful and treat it like it was disposable? These questions do not arrive dramatically. They arrive slowly, quietly, usually late at night, when the mind finally has nothing else to distract it. Because the truth is that time exposes something many people try to ignore. When someone leaves a good man, they often do not feel the loss immediately. In the beginning, there is excitement about new possibilities. There is curiosity about what else is out there. There is the belief that something better is waiting around the corner, but time has a way of testing that belief. New experiences begin happening, new people appear, and slowly she begins noticing something she did not expect. The man she left behind had qualities that are far rarer than she realized in the moment. That is the moment where time begins doing its real work, because once the comparison begins, once reality replaces imagination, the mind starts recognizing what it actually lost. And unlike the breakup itself, which happened quickly, this realization often unfolds slowly over weeks, months, or even years. And by the time that realization fully forms, the situation has already changed. What many men don't realize is that the mind processes loss in phases, and the phase that arrives first is almost never regret. The first phase is freedom. Freedom from responsibility, freedom from compromise, freedom from the emotional weight of the relationship. For a while, that freedom feels exciting. She can do what she wants, talk to who she wants, explore the world without explaining herself to anyone. And during this phase, the idea that she lost something valuable doesn't even cross her mind. Everything still feels like an upgrade. But the problem with freedom is that it slowly reveals what stability once provided. When you remove someone who was consistently present in your life, you don't feel their absence immediately. At first, the silence feels peaceful, the space feels refreshing, but over time, that same silence begins feeling different. The moments where she used to have someone to call, someone to share things with, someone who already understood her personality, those moments begin appearing again. Except this time, there's nobody there. And this is where time begins reshaping the story she told herself during the breakup, because the version of events that once felt clear starts becoming blurry. The mind starts replaying the relationship in a different light. Instead of only remembering the frustrations, she begins remembering the effort the man actually made, the patience he showed when things were difficult, the loyalty he maintained even when things were imperfect. What makes this realization so powerful is that it rarely happens all at once. It happens slowly, through small moments. A random memory appears while she's driving somewhere. A song reminds her of something the two of you used to laugh about. She hears someone say something that sounds exactly like a phrase you used to say. These small reminders begin stacking up quietly in the background of her mind, and the more those reminders appear, the harder it becomes to ignore the possibility that maybe she misjudged the situation. Maybe she convinced herself that leaving was the right move without fully understanding what she was walking away from. Maybe she focused so much on what the relationship lacked that she overlooked what it actually had. This is the moment where time begins shifting the emotional balance of the breakup. In the beginning, the man often feels the loss more intensely because he is the one left behind. He is the one sitting with the unanswered questions, the silence, the absence of the person he invested his time and energy into. But as time passes, the emotional weight slowly begins shifting in the opposite direction, because once the man begins rebuilding his life, once he focuses on his work, his discipline, his personal direction, something changes inside him. The emotional dependence that once existed starts fading. The memories still exist, but they stop controlling his daily thoughts. His attention begins moving forward again. Meanwhile, the woman may find herself entering the phase where reflection becomes unavoidable. The emotional excitement of leaving has already faded. The new experiences no longer feel as thrilling as they once did, and now the mind begins revisiting the past with a different level of honesty. This is the stage where regret quietly begins forming. Not dramatic regret, not the kind that leads to instant action, but the quiet type that sits in the background of someone's mind. The type that appears when she realizes that the man she once viewed as replaceable may not have been as easy to replace as she originally believed. And that is where time begins, revealing its true power, because while people can walk away from relationships quickly, understanding what they lost often takes much longer. And by the time that understanding fully arrives, the man she once left behind may no longer be the same person waiting where she left him. The difficult truth about regret is that it rarely arrives while someone still has easy access to what they lost. Regret is patient. It waits until distance grows, until routines change, until the person who once felt familiar slowly becomes part of the past. When that distance becomes real, the mind finally begins asking questions it avoided earlier. Was the decision made too quickly? Was the relationship judged too harshly in moments of frustration? These questions don't appear loudly. They show up quietly during ordinary moments when the mind has time to wander. What makes this stage emotionally complex is that the woman often remembers not only the good moments, but also the effort the man put into the relationship. The small sacrifices, the compromises, the patience he showed when things were difficult. During the relationship, those actions might have seemed ordinary, but once they disappear from daily life, their value becomes much clearer. Effort that once felt expected suddenly begins looking rare. Another thing time reveals is how difficult it can be to replace emotional familiarity. When two people spend enough time together, they develop an understanding that doesn't need constant explanation. They learn each other's humor, habits, and moods. They know how to comfort each other during stressful days. They know the small details that make the other person feel appreciated. That level of familiarity takes time to build, and when it disappears, it cannot simply be recreated overnight with someone new. This is where reality begins challenging the imagination she had about what life would be like after the breakup. The excitement of starting over eventually meets the reality of beginning again with strangers. Conversations that once flowed easily now feel like introductions again. Trust that once existed now has to be rebuilt from the beginning. And slowly the mind begins recognizing that something stable and comfortable was left behind. But what makes this realization particularly difficult is pride. Pride is one of the strongest emotional barriers people build after a breakup. It tells them that admitting doubt means admitting weakness. It tells them that reconsidering the past might make them look foolish. So even when regret begins forming, pride often keeps those feelings hidden beneath the surface. At the same time, the man who once felt devastated may be experiencing a completely different transformation. The initial pain of the breakup, forced him to confront parts of his life that needed attention. Maybe he focused more seriously on his work, his health, or his personal goals. Maybe he learned lessons about relationships that made him stronger emotionally. Over time, the version of himself that existed during the breakup slowly evolves into someone more focused and independent. This transformation creates an interesting shift in emotional dynamics. The man who once felt abandoned begins feeling grounded again, while the woman who once felt certain about her decision begins feeling uncertain. It's not because either person planned for this to happen. It's simply the natural way time changes perspective, and perspective is powerful. The longer two people spend apart, the more clearly they begin seeing the relationship, without the emotional chaos that existed during its final moments. The arguments lose their intensity, the frustrations lose their urgency. What remains are the patterns of behavior that define the connection between two people. Sometimes those patterns reveal that the relationship truly needed to end, but other times they reveal something more uncomfortable, that the problems may have been temporary, while the bond itself had genuine value. And when that realization appears, it can create a quiet feeling of loss that is far more complicated than the breakup itself. Because the breakup was a decision made in a moment, but understanding what that decision truly meant often takes much longer. And by the time that understanding arrives, the emotional landscape between both people has already changed in ways neither of them expected. What makes time such a powerful force after a breakup is that it slowly removes the emotional narratives people create to protect themselves. In the beginning, those narratives feel necessary. They help someone justify their decision and avoid the uncomfortable feeling that they may have made a mistake. But time does something interesting to those stories. The longer someone lives without the person they once shared their life with, the harder it becomes to maintain a version of events that only highlights the negatives. Memories begin rearranging themselves in ways that are difficult to control. Instead of only remembering arguments or frustrations, the mind begins replaying moments that once felt ordinary but now carry emotional weight. The random conversations late at night, the way the man showed up when something in her life went wrong, the small routines that once made daily life feel familiar and comfortable. These memories slowly return without permission. And when those memories begin appearing more frequently, the mind naturally starts comparing the past with the present. Comparison is one of the most powerful psychological processes people experience after a breakup. It forces someone to measure what they had against what they currently have. And sometimes that comparison reveals something unexpected, that the man she once believed she could easily replace possessed qualities that are much rarer than she realized. This realization often arrives quietly rather than dramatically. It might happen after meeting several new people who do not carry the same patience, the same loyalty, or the same sense of emotional stability the previous man had. It might happen during a moment where she finds herself wishing someone understood her the way he once did. These moments are small, but over time they begin shaping a new perspective. What makes this stage emotionally complicated is that the mind begins recognizing that the man she left behind may have actually been someone who valued the relationship deeply. And when someone realizes they may have walked away from genuine loyalty, that realization can create a feeling that is difficult to ignore. Because loyalty is not something that appears easily in modern relationships. At the same time, the man who once felt abandoned may now be moving forward in ways she never expected. The pain that once consumed his thoughts slowly transformed into motivation. He may have redirected his energy toward building his life, improving himself, and creating new opportunities. And with each step forward, the version of himself she once knew slowly begins disappearing. This transformation is something time quietly produces in people who refuse to stay stuck in the past. The breakup that once felt like the end of everything eventually becomes the moment that forced growth. The emotional dependence fades, the longing fades. What remains is a man who now understands his own value more clearly than before. And when the woman eventually notices that change, when she sees that the man she left behind is no longer the same person who once waited for her attention, it can create a moment of emotional shock, because the assumption that he would always remain available, always remain emotionally attached, quietly disappears. That realization can be difficult to process because it challenges the emotional comfort people sometimes carry after leaving someone. Many individuals assume they can return if they ever choose to. They assume the person they left will remain exactly where they were, waiting for another chance. But time rarely allows people to stay frozen in the same emotional state forever. And this is where the true impact of time becomes clear. While one person was busy justifying the breakup and exploring new possibilities, the other person was slowly rebuilding themselves into someone stronger and more independent. And by the time the woman fully recognizes what she may have lost, the man she once left behind may already be far beyond the point of looking back. And this is the part of the story that most people never see when a relationship ends. The outside world only sees the breakup itself, the moment where two people separate and begin living different lives. But the real emotional journey happens afterward, quietly, behind closed doors, inside the mind of each person. Because once the noise of the breakup fades and life returns to its normal rhythm, people are finally left alone with their thoughts. And when someone is alone with their thoughts long enough, the mind eventually begins confronting truths that were avoided before. For the woman, this often begins as small reflections rather than dramatic realizations. She might remember something the man once said to her that she dismissed at the time. She might recall a moment where he tried to fix something in the relationship, but she was too frustrated to listen. These memories do not appear all at once. They appear slowly, scattered across ordinary days, until they begin forming a clearer picture of what the relationship actually was. And what makes those reflections powerful is that they arrive without the emotional chaos that existed during the breakup. The anger is gone, the arguments are gone, the pressure to justify the decision is gone. What remains is perspective, and perspective has a way of revealing things that emotions once hid. At the same time, the life she imagined after the breakup may not unfold exactly as she expected. In the beginning, it seemed like the world was full of possibilities. New people, new experiences, new opportunities. But as time passes, reality slowly replaces imagination. She begins noticing that many of the people she meets do not carry the same level of emotional depth or consistency that the man she left behind once had. This is where the comparison becomes unavoidable. Not because she wants to compare, but because the mind naturally evaluates experiences against what it already knows. If the previous man treated her with patience, respect, and loyalty, those qualities become the standard her mind measures others against. And when new people fail to meet that standard, the memory of what she once had becomes even stronger. Meanwhile, the man she once walked away from may be experiencing an entirely different transformation. The pain that once consumed his thoughts slowly became the fuel for growth. Instead of staying trapped in the past, he began focusing on building a life that did not revolve around someone else's validation. And that shift in focus quietly changes everything. Because when a man stops chasing emotional closure and starts investing his energy into his own direction, he becomes someone different. His confidence changes, his priorities change. The emotional vulnerability that once made him feel powerless begins turning into emotional strength, and over time the version of himself that existed during the breakup disappears completely. This transformation is something the woman may not notice immediately, but eventually, information travels. She hears about his progress through mutual friends, social media, or simply by observing his life from a distance. And when she realizes that he is no longer emotionally stuck where she left him, it creates a moment of realization she may not have expected. Because the story she once told herself during the breakup often assumed that he would remain affected by the loss forever. It assumed that he would always feel the same level of attachment, but time rarely allows people to stay in the same emotional place forever. People evolve, especially when they are forced to confront difficult experiences, and that is the moment where time delivers its final lesson. The breakup that once seemed like a clear victory for one person slowly reveals itself as something much more complex, because while one person spent time convincing themselves that they had lost nothing, the other person spent that same time rebuilding themselves into someone stronger. And when those two paths finally cross again, whether directly or from a distance, the emotional reality between them is no longer the same. At this stage, something subtle but powerful begins happening inside her mind. The past no longer feels like a closed chapter. Instead, it begins feeling unfinished. Certain conversations replay in her head with new meaning. Moments she once dismissed as ordinary suddenly appear significant. The way he stayed calm during arguments, the way he continued trying even when the relationship felt difficult. But these memories slowly begin reshaping the story she originally told herself about why the relationship ended. What makes this stage particularly difficult is that regret rarely arrives with clear answers. It arrives as questions she cannot easily silence. What if things could have worked if we had just handled certain situations differently? What if the problems were temporary, but the bond itself was real. These thoughts appear unexpectedly, often during quiet moments when the mind finally slows down enough to reflect honestly. Meanwhile, the man she once left behind is continuing his life in ways she never fully imagined during the breakup. The version of him that existed back then, the one who felt confused, hurt, and emotionally vulnerable, has slowly disappeared. In its place is someone who has learned from the experience, someone who has redirected his energy toward building something meaningful. This transformation often happens quietly. It doesn't require dramatic announcements or public displays of success. It simply appears in the way he carries himself, the way he speaks, the way he approaches life with more clarity and purpose. Pain has a strange way of forcing people to grow in ways comfort never could, and when she eventually becomes aware of that change, it can create a strange emotional contradiction inside her. On one hand, she may feel proud that he improved his life, but on the other hand, she may also realize that the person she left behind has become someone she would find deeply attractive today, someone stronger, someone more grounded. That realization can be difficult because it forces the mind to confront an uncomfortable possibility that the man she once viewed as easily replaceable may have actually been someone rare, someone who simply needed time to evolve into the best version of himself. And by the time that realization becomes clear, the emotional balance between them has already shifted. The man who once looked toward the past now looks toward the future. His attention is no longer centered on what he lost, but on what he is building. This shift changes the entire emotional dynamic of the situation, because the possibility of returning to what once existed slowly fades away. Relationships exist within a specific moment in time, and when that moment passes, recreating it becomes far more difficult than people expect. Time does not simply heal wounds, it changes people. The experiences that follow a breakup reshape priorities, perspectives, and emotional boundaries. By the time both individuals fully understand what the relationship meant to them, they are no longer the same people who originally shared it. And this is why time carries such quiet power after a relationship ends. In the beginning, it seems like nothing is happening. Life simply continues moving forward. But beneath that quiet surface, both people are slowly transforming. And when those transformations finally reveal themselves, the emotional reality of the breakup looks completely different than it did in the beginning.